Welcome back to Midday. With students and teachers back in the classroom, it's important for schools to have emergency response plans in place. The Smart Heart Act is being pushed to ensure that happens, and the American Heart Association is working to help raise awareness and save lives. Mother and advocate Lakeisha Benson and American Heart Association School Engagement Director and newly crowned Miss South Carolina, Sarah K. Wren, joining me in studio this afternoon. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy to be here.
So Sarah K., congratulations to you being crowned Miss South Carolina 2025, but a bigger mission at hand here that we're talking about, the Smart Heart Act. Can you explain to us what it is and what it is the American Heart Association is trying to send out with their message?
For sure. So the Smart Heart Act would require all public schools in South Carolina to have a cardiac emergency response plan in place in case somebody goes into sudden cardiac arrest. And this isn't just important to protect our students, but it's also for our teachers and the staff and parents and visitors at the school. And we've had success. We actually, a student's life was saved in Florence, South Carolina. His name's Luke Barrett, and his life was saved because his school had a cardiac emergency response plan in place. And at the time, that was the only district in South Carolina that had this as a requirement. So that's why we're here today, is to ensure that every single student and school is safe and to make our school communities a safer place for our students.
Absolutely. Safety is a top priority for schools. When parents send their children to school, they want to make sure that they are able to come back. Lakeisha, we're going to talk about your story a little bit. First of all, thank you so much for coming on this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
No mother ever wants to go through something like this. Can you share a little bit about your story and your son Vari?
Yes, ma'am. So in 2017, my son Vari was on school campus and he was playing a game of basketball with his friends and he collapsed. And unfortunately, he had a sudden cardiac arrest, and there was not a plan in place. There was an AED, but it was not utilized. They did not recognize what it was, and so unfortunately, he did not survive.
How would something like the Smart Heart Act been something that was needed during that time, if maybe someone just knew protocol?
So, and Vari's not the only story like that. There's so many other parents that I've met that have had similar situations. So when we have these plans in place, it ensures that somebody knows what to do, because when you're not prepared, a lot of times people panic or they freeze. And sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 cause of death on school campuses. I've worked in education and I was not even aware of it. I used to coach, I was not aware. And so I believe that having these plans in place are just an extra layer of protection, so people know where the AED is, so that you know who's going to call 911, and so there's not people running around and confused, but actually moving forward to make sure that they act appropriately and save a life.
Absolutely. And you know, the numbers are staggering. When you're talking about cardiac arrest victims, there's a huge majority. Children are the victims of these cardiac arrest emergencies. So it's so important that we do have these policies in place in schools. What can the community do to get involved to help spread this message and the importance?
So I would encourage everyone to visit heartpowered.org. That's the best place for you to get involved. You can actually even sign up to become an advocate and then reach out to your legislators. The next session starts in January, and we're going to be working diligently to ensure that the Smart Heart Act is passed. But the best way is to hear from the community, reaching out to your legislators, even teachers, administrators, anybody that can share their support for this law.
And you know, it takes all of us, not just teachers, not just faculty and students, but Lakeisha, what message would you give to families for them to be prepared as well?
For me, I would say we should not have to wait for there to be a tragedy to happen in our community before we can step up. Children's safety should be our first priority, so I'd encourage anybody with a school-aged child or anyone that works in the school, honestly anybody in the community, to reach out and to get involved, because that should be our first priority within the state, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Thank you for
Lakeisha,
having
and
us.
for Sarah K. coming by, spreading this very important message. You know, this is something that is so important to our community, should be important for everyone. So we want to make sure that the community is informed. Again, for all the information on the Smart Heart Act, you can visit heart.org. You can also see this full interview on our website, wistv.com. We'll have a link as well on how you can get involved. Thank you, ladies, so much again.
Thank you.